You wake up this morning and think you're a modern person. You're not. You're basically a walking museum of ancient Greek leftovers, and you don't even know it. Look down. That alphabet you just read this in? Greek fingerprints all over it. The democracy you're about to complain about online? Greek. The word online comes from a Greek root too, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. You think you invented the modern world. You didn't. A bunch of bearded men in bedsheets got there about 2,500 years ago, and they've been quietly running your life ever since. So let's take a normal day, your day, and let's count how much of it was already invented before your great-great-grandmother's great-great-grandmother was a rumor. Okay, it's morning, you roll out of bed, and the first thing you do is check what day it is. Congratulations. You just used a calendar concept the Greeks helped shape, and you probably said the name of a planet without noticing. But hold that thought, because the real Greek stuff starts the second you stand up and your knees make a noise. You stumble to the bathroom. And here's where it gets weird, because the Greeks were obsessed with the body in a way that would make your gym membership blush. They didn't just exercise. They invented the entire idea of exercising for its own sake. The word gymnasium is Greek. It literally means the place where you're naked. That's right. Their word for the gym was basically the nude zone, because Greek athletes trained completely without clothes, glistening with olive oil, scraping the sweat and grime off afterwards with a little curved bronze tool. So the next time you're at the gym pretending you know how the leg press works, remember, you're carrying on a proud tradition that the Greeks did entirely nude, and you should feel lucky they added the shorts later. And it wasn't just showing off. The Greeks genuinely believed a healthy body and a healthy mind went together, that you couldn't have a sharp brain sitting on top of a lazy body. This is the whole sound mind in a sound body idea, and it's the exact reason your school made you run laps in the rain when you would rather have died. You can thank a Greek for gym class. You can also, if you want, quietly resent one. While you're in there, you brush your teeth, you sort yourself out, you try to look like a functioning human. The Greeks were weirdly ahead on medicine too. There was a physician named Hippocrates who had the radical idea that when you got sick, it might be caused by, natural stuff, bad water, bad air, bad diet, and not by an angry god flinging illness at you for fun. Doctors today still take a version of the promise named after him, the Hippocratic Oath, before they're allowed to poke you. So the guy who invented maybe it's not a curse, maybe drink more water, has been sitting quietly behind every doctor's appointment you've ever had. Now, you look in the mirror, you're a person with a mind, wondering what it all means. Congratulations, you just did philosophy, and you have one specific annoying man to thank for that. His name was Socrates, and he wandered around Athens doing the single most irritating thing a human can do, asking questions. He'd corner you in the marketplace and ask what justice really is. You'd say something confident, he'd ask another question, you'd panic. 20 minutes later, you'd realize you didn't actually know anything about anything, and you'd have said it out loud in front of everyone. Socrates did this so relentlessly that the city of Athens eventually put him on trial and sentenced him to death by poison. Yeah, they killed a guy for asking too many questions. Which honestly is the most Athenian thing that ever happened. His student was Plato, Plato's student was Aristotle, and Aristotle basically invented the idea of organizing knowledge into subjects. Biology, physics, logic, ethics, every boring class you ever fell asleep in, Aristotle drew up the syllabus. You can be mad at him about it, he's been dead for a while so he won't ask you a follow-up question. Okay, breakfast. You want coffee, obviously. And no, the Greeks didn't invent coffee. Calm down. But they did invent the thing you do with your coffee, which is sit around arguing about politics like you personally run the country. Because here's the big one, democracy. That whole system where ordinary people get a say in how things are run, that was born in Athens around 508 BC, and it was gloriously, chaotically direct. There was no voting for someone to go vote for you. You showed up. Thousands of citizens crammed onto a rocky hill called the Pnyx and just argued, out loud, all of them, about everything. And if a politician got too popular, too full of himself, too obviously about to seize power, the Athenians had a delightful solution. Once a year, they could hold a vote to kick one guy out of the city for 10 years. No crime required. You just had to be annoying enough that everybody wanted you gone. They scratched the name of the person they hated onto little broken bits of pottery. And the Greek word for that broken pottery shard was ostrakon, which is exactly where we get the word ostracize. So every time you leave someone off the group chat, you're running a tiny ancient Athenian democracy, and you didn't even need the pottery. And the whole vocabulary of your government, Greek or built on Greek ideas. Democracy itself just means rule by the people, Politics comes from polis, their word for the city. Even the smug words for the other systems, when one person grabs all the power and won't let go, you call it a tyranny. And yes, that word is Greek too, because the Greeks lived through plenty of them and needed something to shout. They basically wrote the entire dictionary of complaining about your government, then handed it to you so you'd be ready. But here's the catch nobody mentions. Athenian democracy was for a pretty small club free adult men, and that was it. Women couldn't vote. Enslaved people couldn't vote. Foreigners couldn't vote. So it wasn't quite the fair, everyone's invited version you're picturing. It was democracy with a very exclusive guest list. Still, the seed was planted, and roughly everybody who came after spent the next 2,000 years arguing about who else should get in. Now, you sit down to actually eat, and you flip on some entertainment, a show, a bit of drama, and oh, you sweet thing, you have no idea what you just invoked. The Greeks invented theater. Not just plays the entire building, the stage, the seats, the whole ritual of a crowd sitting in the dark watching pretend people have feelings. They had two flavors: tragedy, where everything goes horribly wrong and everyone you love dies, and comedy, where everything goes stupidly wrong and someone gets hit in the face. The two little masks you see everywhere, the happy one and the sad one, straight out of a Greek theater. Actors wore giant masks, so the guy in the cheap seats up the back could tell whether this was the crying part or the laughing part. It's a 2,500-year-old accessibility feature, and it became the logo for drama forever. They took it deadly seriously, too. Once a year, Athens held a massive theater competition, playwrights sweating over their scripts, hoping to win first prize in front of the entire city. So your favorite show having a big awards night? Also Greek. They were doing red carpet drama before there were carpets. And they gave you the vocabulary you used to talk about it, too. That show with the plot twist that emotionally destroyed you? That's a drama, a Greek word. The moment the hero's own big flaw brings him crashing down, the Greeks had a word for that fatal flaw, and they built whole plays around it. There was a poet named Aeschylus, one named Sophocles, who wrote a play about a man with truly the worst luck in family history, and one named Aristophanes, who wrote comedies so rude and so full of insulting real politicians by name that it makes your edgiest late-night comedian look shy. 2,500 years ago, they were roasting their leaders on stage in front of thousands of people. Some things really don't change. All right, you've eaten. It's time to be productive, which means you're going to go do some math and pretend you're not suffering. And every single line of that suffering traces back to a Greek. You want to build anything, measure anything, make sure a wall is straight? You're using geometry. And the man who nailed it down was Euclid, who wrote a book of geometry rules so solid that people used it as the textbook for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Your textbooks last one semester before there's a new edition. Euclid wrote one and the human race went, yeah, that's the one, we're good. Then there's Pythagoras, the man behind that triangle theorem that has haunted every teenager alive. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You learned it, you resented it, you have used it, exactly never, but you know it. And you know it because of a Greek cult leader who, fun fact, was so intensely weird about beans that he apparently refused to eat them and wouldn't let his followers touch them either. The father of your math homework was terrified of legumes. Sleep well. And Archimedes. Oh, Archimedes. This is the man who reportedly figured out a genius principle about water and volume while sitting in his bath, got so excited he leapt out and ran naked through the streets, shouting, Eureka! Which is Greek for, I've found it. So every time you have a great idea and shout Eureka, you are reenacting a wet, naked, over-caffeinated Greek man having the best day of his life. You're welcome. And here's one that'll get you. You want to go somewhere, so you pull up a map, and you casually check the weather and the climate. Greek word, in fact, a Greek named Eratosthenes, sitting in a library, worked out the size of the entire planet using nothing but shadows, a stick, and some frankly heroic math, and he got shockingly close to the real number. No satellites, no plane, a stick, and a very big brain. Meanwhile, you can't find your keys. Now, you might be wondering when you get to relax. Fine. Evening. You want to unwind, have a drink, hang out with your friends and talk nonsense? Guess what that's called? A party. And guess who perfected the drinking party as a social institution? Come on, you know who. The Greeks had the symposium, which literally translates to drinking together. It was a fancy dinner party where men reclined on couches, drank wine, and had deep philosophical conversations that got progressively less philosophical as the wine kept flowing. They even watered their wine down, because drinking it straight was considered the behavior of a barbarian. So they invented the classy dinner party and the concept of pacing yourself, and then ignored the second one after the third cup. They also gave us the whole idea of the Olympic Games, held every 4 years at Olympia, where athletes competed for glory and a crown of olive leaves. No cash, no sponsorship deal. Just leaves and the right to be smug forever. And yes, like the gym, they competed naked, because the Greeks really, really committed to that particular bit. The games mattered so much that cities would actually pause their wars to let everyone travel safely to watch an official truce, just so nobody missed the running. Think about that. They would stop fighting an actual war rather than miss the sports. And every 4 years, right now, the whole planet still gathers to do the exact thing those oiled-up Greeks started, except this time it's on your television and, mercifully, everyone's wearing clothes. And through all of it, the philosophy, the theater, the democracy, the parties, they were writing it down using an alphabet. The alphabet. The word alphabet itself is just their first two letters, alpha and beta, smashed together. Every text you send, every sign you read, every word on this very screen sits on top of a Greek invention. Alpha, beta. You've been saying it your whole life without noticing. So let's add it up. You woke up and used a calendar. You went to the gym. You looked in the mirror and did philosophy. You argued about politics and quietly ostracized someone. You watched drama with its little happy and sad masks. You did geometry you'll never use, thought about a triangle, and maybe shouted Eureka. You went to a party, and you did every last bit of it reading letters that start with alpha and beta. That is not a modern life. That is an ancient Greek starter pack with better plumbing. Now, you'd think, after all that, you could at least claim one thing as fully your own. The internet, maybe? Surely that's yours. Except the very idea of an encyclopedia, one big organized collection of all human knowledge, comes from a Greek phrase meaning the full circle of learning. So even your search engine is running on a Greek concept, and it's returning results in a Greek alphabet about topics Greek philosophers named. Here's the thing. You didn't build the modern world from scratch. You inherited a 2,500-year-old group project and slapped a screen on it. Democracy, philosophy, theater, mathematics, the Olympics, the alphabet, the dinner party, and the deep human joy of arguing with strangers about things you don't fully understand. All of it already invented, already waiting for you, before you were even a genetic possibility. So go ahead, check what day it is tomorrow, roll out of bed, look in the mirror and wonder what it all means. And remember, you thought you were a modern person. You're not. You're a walking museum of ancient Greek leftovers. And now, finally, you know it.